Se sangana paya kande narotamanda. Se sangana paya kande narotamanda. Se sangana paya kande narotamanda. Jaya nila premadhana karuna prachur. Jaya nila premadhana karuna prachur. Haridasa Thakur ki jai, Narottam Das Thakur ki jai. Okay, so today we're going to be reading from, I couldn't get the PDF up there, but Namacharya, the life of Srila Haridasa Thakur. So we'll read through a little section in which Haridasa Thakur here will read about his identity, which is the first chapter, Advent and Identity, and we'll read through some of the chapter 4, which has some of the specific section of Trials and Tribulations or Valuable Lessons by Haridasa Thakur. And then we'll read through, since it's the Disappearance Day of Haridasa Thakur, we'll read through the last chapter, which is chapter 8, The Glorious Revelation and Departure. So obviously Haridasa Thakur is Namacharya, one who was exemplifying what it means to chant the holy name of the Lord, as Sanatana Goswami said, O Haridasa Thakur, you not only preach, but you practice what you preach, therefore you are the Acharya, as Prabhupada quotes that often. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as we spoke about yesterday, he writes a poem in English about Haridasa Thakur actually. And this is called Asaragrehi Vaishnava. O born of Muslim parents, Haridas, and trained in youth in Muslim creed, thy noble heart to Vaishnava truth did pass. Thy holy acts, thy candor plead. Is there a soul that cannot learn from these, that man must give up sect of God, for God? That thoughts of race, maybe you can, oh, you get it. And that thoughts of race and sect can near agree with what they call religion broad. Thy love of God and brother soul alone, bereft thyself of early friends, thy softer feelings oft to kindness prone, led on thyself for higher ends. I weep to read the Qazis and their men oft persecute these, alas, but thou didst noble pray for the wicked then, for thou were Vaishnav Haridas. And God is boundless grace to thee, O man, united thee to one who came to save the fallen souls from evil plan of taking human souls to shame. And he it was who led you all that came for eternal life, holy, pure, and gave you rest in heaven, enduring name, and sacred blessings ever sure. Thy body rest upon the sacred sands of Swargadwar near the sea. Oh, hundreds come to thee from distant lands to enjoy a holy, thrilling glee. The waters roar and storming winds assail thy ears in vain. Ah, Vaishnava soul, the charms of Vrindavan thy heart regale. Unknown the wheel of time, death's roll. He reasons ill who tells the Vaishnava die, when thou art living in sound, still in sound. The Vaishnava die to live, and living try to spread a holy name, holy life around. Now let the candid man that seeks to live follow thy way on shore of time. Then posterity sure to him will give thy one sung in simpler rhyme. Okay, so that's the famous line that comes there by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So there's a little bit of reading to do here. So we'll pass it around, some of the men here. Okay. Want to read? Have the mic?
Advent and Identity.
Mic closer.
Sorry. Advent and Identity. The advent of Haridasa Thakur is shrouded in mystery. Although there is very little definitive information about his early life, something can be gleaned from the main biographical sources. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat by Vrindavan Das Thakur and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Sorry, is this better?
Yeah.
As well as other authoritative books. He was born in the village of Budhan in the district of Jesari in East Bengal, now in Bangladesh, to a Muslim family. The names of his father and mother, his early education, how he passed his boyhood, etc., all remain unknown. He appeared some 30 to 35 years prior to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So like 2 paragraphs still?
There's the 2 pages each.
Okay. Professor Nisikanta Sanya states, Thakur Haridas made his appearance in this world in about the year 1451 AD, or 1372 Sakhabda, 35 years before the advent of Sri Chaitanya in the village of Budhan in the district of Jesari. He came of a Mohammedan family, and in some manner, of which we do not possess any trustworthy record, obtained very early in life the mercy of a Vaishnav who initiated him into the religion of all souls. The professor finishes his summary of the Thakur's early life by stating, quote, he thereupon left his parents' house and his kin, and came to Benapur, where he made a small hut and lived therein, end quote. Raghava Chaitanya Prabhu tells us little more. Quote, there are no authentic records of his antecedents, his parents' boyhood, education, etc. He was born in a Muslim family. We know him under the name of Haridas, which literally means a servant of Sri Hari. Though born of a Muslim family, he possessed an inexplicable aptitude for taking the name of Sri Hari. Hence, violating the rules of Muslim society, he incessantly repeated Sri Hari's name. He felt it was the sole support of his life. Having lost all attachment to worldly life even when very young, Thakur Haridas left his native village, end quote. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, quote, in these dark days of Bengal, 30 or 35 years in advance of the appearance of Bhagavan Sri Chaitanya Dev, in order to help the transcendental activities of him who is love himself, the four-faced Virinchi, Brahma, appeared in a non-Hindu Yavana family in the village of Budhan. We do not learn anything about the boyhood of Thakur Haridas from authoritative works. No reliance can be placed on recent books on the subject that offer fictitious accounts bearing the names of ancient authors. In the opinion of some, the appearance of Brahma in a non-Hindu Yavana family was an expiation of the offense of stealing the calves. There are some again who hold that Sri Prahlad Maharaj became visible under the name of Haridas. When he grew up in years, Thakur Haridas, giving up the social customs and principles of the Yavana or Muslim family, was found constantly taking the name of Sri Hari. The writers who have recorded the Leela of those days are silent as regards the agent by whose instigation Thakur Haridas was initiated in the rite of the name of the Godhead, transgressing the rules of Yavana society, and also as regards the person whose mercy he obtained. We therefore feel a certain degree of apprehension in adducing proofs in support of those facts. After the lapse of such a long period, Haridas ascertained that to pray to God without any selfish object, Giving up all mundane expectations and impulses is the only duty of life. After having arrived at this decision, though still very young, Thakur Haridasa left Bhutan and taking up his residence in a solitary cell close to Bhutan, began loudly taking the name of Krishna. End quote.
Do you want this?
Yeah, I'm fine. In the above statement by Srila Saraswati Thakur, he appears to express ambivalence about whether Haridas Thakur is Brahma or Prahlad Maharaj. This is due to his fidelity to the previous acharyas who have given different opinions on Haridas Thakur's identity, and who have also accepted both the possibility and reality of one spiritual being having multiple identities or personalities. Srila Kavikarnapur Goswami, the exalted son of Srila Shivananda Sen, Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, the personal secretary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Srila Murari Gupta Prabhu, the incarnation of Hanuman, have all accepted this latter principle in their writings. What's more, Srila Murari Gupta Prabhu and Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami both kept extensive notes on the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, which are considered to form the authoritative basis of subsequent biographies by Vrindavan Das Thakur in the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Thanks. Thus, what would constitute a severe derangement on the mind of the material plane, a person possessing multiple personalities, is normative, ecstatic, and non-conflicting. Okay. Thus, what would constitute a severe derangement on the mind of on the material plane, a person possessing multiple personalities, is normative, ecstatic, and non-conflicting on the spiritual plane. In the Who's Who of Sri Chaitanya Lila, Sri Gaura Ganodesha Deepika by Srila Kavi Karnapur, some of Mahaprabhu's associates are said to be composed of 1, 2, or even 3 or more personalities or identities of liberated souls serving in the eternal kingdom of Goloka Vrindavan. Vrindavan Das Thakur states, Haridas Thakur appeared in the village of Budhan, and as a result, that province is filled with kirtan even today. Even Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments, Haridas Thakur is an eternally perfect associate of the Lord. He appeared in a Mohammedan family in the village of Budhan, within the district of Jessore. Due to his mercy, many persons in the district of Jessore obtained piety and became faithful to the chanting of Krishna's holy names. Identity. In the Navadip Dham Mahatmya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written the following. In the Dwapar Yug, Nandana Sri Krishna was herding the cows through Vrajadham in the company of his cowherd boyfriends. When Brahma decided to test out the Lord out of a desire to see his majestic form and opulences, he stole both Krishna's cows and calves, as well as his friends, and hid them for a year in the caves of Sumeru mountain. But a year later, when Brahma returned to Vraj, he was astonished to see that Krishna was still there with both his friends and cows. Brahma immediately understood his error and began to regret his rash action. He fell down at Krishna's feet and begged him for forgiveness. Krishna responded by mercifully revealing his divine opulence. He who appears in Dwapar Yuga as Nandana Sri Krishna descends again in the Kali Yuga as Gauranga, taking on the mood and luster of Radharani in order to display the most magnanimous pastimes. Brahma was afraid that he might commit the same offense during the Gauranga's incarnation, so he went to Antaradvip, the central island of Navadvip, and began to meditate. The Lord understood his mind and so came to him in the form of Gauranga and said, during my incarnation as Gaura, you'll be born in a family of mlechas and will preach the glories of the holy name and bring auspiciousness to all living beings. There are some additional statements about Haridas Thakur that may be found in the Advaita Prakash and other literatures, which are not included in this book. This is due to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's opinion that Advaita Prakash is not dependable as a source of information. He states in his introduction of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are several other new books or books that were written a little later, such as Jayananda's Chaitanya Mangal, Govinda Das's Kadacha, Vamshi Shikha, Advaita Prakash, and Nityananda Vamsha Vistara. Although it is said that these books are old, we have no interest in them. They are distinct in the way that they are incorrect in the philosophical truths and conclusion. Their narrow-minded evil intentions are obvious and highly noticeable due to the absence of any effort of proper teaching in them. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is said to be the original book, and these apragranthas, bogus books, are not recognized.
The above statement by Srila Saraswati Thakur may seem a trifle harsh to the reader. However, the Sahajiyas, groups of spiritual sentimentalists, pseudo-devotees, who sprang up after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his principal followers, created great obstacles in the preaching of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Such so-called devotees composed many literatures about Lord Chaitanya and his followers, which had, as their primary source, their fertile imaginations. Later, a group of Calcutta publishers called the Batalals published more than 50 of the Sahajiya's spurious works during the years 1815 to 1899. These books came to be viewed by many people as the definitive works concerning Lord Chaitanya and his associates. The service performed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was to publish and propagate the actual authorized works written by the contemporaries of Mahaprabhu and their disciples. Anything not in conformance with such eyewitness accounts or accounts from authorized biographers was rejected. Some of the Sahajiya works made claims for their own antiquity, even to the extent of publishing their creative fictions in the names of Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. But the erroneous conclusions and speculative assumptions of such books revealed their undependable nature. At their worst, such Sahajiya authors were ganja smokers, black arts tantrics, and practitioners of illicit sex in imitation of Rasalila. At best, such sentimentalists deviated from the pure teachings of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan and concocted various spiritual practices and writings. Discarding such tainted accounts, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur strictly adhered to the conclusions of the 6 Goswamis and their followers. Regarding Haridas Thakur's previous identity, Gaura Garnod Desha Deepika states, Richika Muni's son Brahma, Mahat Tapa, and Prahlad Maharaja combined to appear as Haridas Thakur in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. In the book Chaitanya Charita, Murari Gupta explains that one morning Mahatapaha gave an unwashed tulsi leaf to his father, who became so angry at him for this that he cursed him. Because of this, Mahatapaha took birth in a Yavana family as the great devotee Haridas Thakur. Garnod Desha Deepika, text 93 to 95. The Gaudiya Vaishnava community generally accepts the conclusions of Sri Gaura Garnod Desha Deepika due to its being composed by Srila Kavi Karanapura Goswami, the son of Srila Shivananda Sen, the exalted follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shivananda Sen was the provider and protector of the devotees from Bengal when they traveled to see Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. He was an eternal associate of the Lord as affirmed by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and in Krishna Lila he is a combined form of 2 gopis, namely Veera Devi and Duti Devi. Shivananda Sen's wife is the Vraja Gopi named Bindumati. One of the 3 exalted sons of Shivananda Sen was Srila Kavi Karanapura Goswami. All of Shivananda Sen's sons were eternal associates of the Lord as explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Srila Kavi Karanapura Goswami is known as Puridasa, and Paramananda Sen. He is the author of many exalted works, including Ananda Vrindavana Champu, Alankara Kaustubha, and the great epic Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, and was personally empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to write authoritative books. Murari Gupta, the incarnation of Hanuman, appeared as a physician in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and is also the author of Chaitanya Charita, a wonderful description of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and kept elaborate notes which formed the elaborate which formed the basis of many subsequent biographical works. Anything written by him is accepted as authoritative by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas.
In the Prema Vilasa, chapter 24, composed by the disciples of Srimati Janavadevi, Nityananda Das, he concurs with the descriptions by Kavi Karnapur Goswami and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also states that Prahlad Maharaj appeared with two Brahmas. Richika Muni's son, who was named Brahma, became a Yavana due to his father's curse. The great soul Brahma, who was cursed by his father Richika, and Brahma, the universal creator, met together as Haridas. Prahlad came and united with them as well. These three mingled together as Srila Haridas Mahajan. Srila Prabhupada states, on the Mahaprakasha day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Haridas Thakur and informed him that he was none different than an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. Vrindavan Das Thakur does not attempt to resolve the previous identity of Haridas Thakur. He simply states, someone said, Haridas is like four-headed Brahma. Another person said, he is a manifestation of Prahlad. Haridas is certainly an exalted devotee. He enjoys his pastimes amongst the associate of Lord Chaitanya. According to certain writers, Haridas Thakur was born in Brahmana family. They say his father's name was Sumati and his mother's name was Gauri, that his parents died when he was young, and that he went to live with a Muslim couple named Khan in the village of Halimpur, about 5 miles from his birthplace, on the other bank of Shalai River. Such people say that was why he was brought up in an Islamic environment. However, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur does not give any credence to such theories, stating some people compose imitation literatures in which they claim that Haridas Thakur was born in a seminal Brahmana family, and thereby they attribute to him insignificant mundane social considerations born from their own ignorance. Such imaginary truth is always contrary to historic facts. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur expresses his irritation in the above quote concerning persons attempting to ascribe mundane social importance to Haridas Thakur. Such attempts are actuated by a desire to deny his birth in a Muslim family and to give him what they consider a more noble position as a seminal Brahmana. Haridas Thakur was already exalted beyond the imagination of such authors of whimsical and fallacious accounts. So many imaginary literature had been published by the Bhattatalas and as referenced earlier in this chapter, and as such literatures had nothing to do with truth or historical fact. Srila Saraswati Thakur wanted to be sure that no one took such ill-motivated accounts seriously. Although there are various views about Haridas Thakur's previous identity and antecedents, it is generally understood that his life parallels the activity of Prahlad Maharaj, who took birth in a Daita family but was completely absorbed in the chanting of the holy name from early childhood. Prahlad Maharaj was persecuted and ultimately delivered by the Lord, as was Haridas. Yet Haridas Thakur was also parallels the activities of Brahma, who had unparalleled capacity to perform meditational austerities. Haridas Thakur was amongst all the Vaishnavas, was famous amongst all the Vaishnavas because he chanted 300,000 names of the Lord daily without fail. Haridas Thakur is an eternally perfect associate of the Lord. That much is certain, and he is amongst the greatest of Sri Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's exalted associates. So that's chapter 1. It's pretty amazing, revealing the identity of Bhakti of Srila Haridasa Thakur, that we see here so many different ideas and false notions that existed, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur cleared a lot of that up. Specifically, this idea that he came from a Semino Brahmana family. He says that's it's blasphemous, because they try to degrade his importance by ascribing some mundane social giving him some mundane social importance. So it's amazing that ultimately concluding here that he's Prahlad, and at the same time also Lord Brahma, Prahlad, in the way that he was born in a family of Muslims, the Daita family compared to Daita family, and then as Brahma, being able to perform long hours of chanting the holy name, 300,000 names of the Lord daily without fail. So that is the identity of Haridasa Thakur. Is there any questions or anything anybody has? Okay. So now there's some pastimes here we can read through. And then there's chapter 4. Okay. So we can read through this. That might be long actually. Deliverance of the prostitute. Oh, that's not too long. Okay. We can read through deliverance of the prostitute. You want to read next? We just finished a round.
Oh, you just passed the book, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hold and read at the same time. We're reading about 2 pages. Devotee.
Bhajan, no?
No, we'll continue reading.
Okay. How much am I supposed to read?
2 pages.
From here?
Yeah.
Chapter 2, Deliverance of the Prostitute. Solitary Chanting. After leaving his home, Haridasa Thakur stayed for some time in the forest of Benapola, which was situated in the area of the village of Benapola, in the district of Yashohara, which is now in Bangladesh. He constructed a cottage in a solitary spot in the forest, planted a tulasi plant, and began to constantly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A formula composed of the 16 names of the Lord and formed of 32 syllables. Such chanting of God's holy name is called Tarak Brahmanama, or the name that helps one cross beyond the ocean of illusion. The Thakur chanted throughout the entire day and night. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada comments, Haridasa Thakur used to chant the holy name on his beads 300,000 times a day, 300,000 times daily. Throughout the entire day and night, he would chant the 16 names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. One should not, however, imitate Haridasa Thakur, for no one else can chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 300,000 times a day. Such chanting is for the Mukta Purusha, or liberated soul. We can follow his example, however, by chanting 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on beads every day and offering respect to the tulasi plant. This is not at all difficult for anyone. And the process of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with a vow before the tulasi plant has such great spiritual potency that simply by doing this, one can become spiritually strong. Therefore, we request the members of the Hare Krishna movement to follow Haridasa Thakur's example rigidly. Chanting 16 rounds does not take much time, nor is offering respects to the tulsi plant difficult. The process has immense spiritual potency. One should not miss this opportunity. So, here are some glories of chanting the Mahamantra in front of Tulasi Maharani is mentioned. And Srila Prabhupada says here that chanting 16 rounds and offering respect to Tulasi plant, that and the process of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with a vow before the Tulasi plant has such great spiritual potency that simply by doing this one can become spiritually strong. So, therefore, it's very powerful if devotees chant together in the temple room with Tulasi present. It's very, 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 very potent. It's much better than chanting elsewhere and other places and things like that. Now, for those who are very strong, spiritually strong already, it may not make much of a difference. But for those who are not spiritually strong, this is a very important thing to follow. So we have to. That's why we have the rule among the men that you have to stay up till 6:15, at least, so that you get at least an hour in the temple room with other devotees in front of Tulasi Maharani, like that. To maintain himself, Haridas Thakur would go to a Brahmana's home and beg for some food. His saintly presence, activities, and practices began to attract a following amongst the local inhabitants, and news of his glories also began to broadcast to other regions. Raghava Chaitanya Prabhu comments, all the virtuous inhabitants of the village regarded Thakur Haridas as a great saint. They were greatly impressed by the various marks of devotion which they had never witnessed on others, and his extraordinary love for the holy name. He gained within a short time great popularity amongst the local people. His reputation spread even to distant places. People from distant places collected there to have a sight of the saint. They rendered him various services and tried to follow his soul-stirring instructions.
The envious Ramachandra Khan. However, the local administrator of those parts and a holder of large tracts of land named Ramachandra Khan became agitated at the Thakur's growing influence. He was envious of Vaishnavas, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami calls him the chief of the atheists. He could not tolerate that such respect was being given to the Thakur, so he designed a plan with the help of his ill-intentioned friends. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments, quote, the sight of Haridas endeavoring with a singleness of purpose to take the name aroused the feeling of hostility in the malicious section of Hindu society. The pure-hearted people were delighted with the spectacle of Haridas's unprecedented love for the name. But the evil impulses of certain persons imbued with the mischievous instincts of brutes were not subdued. One of the leaders of this body of haters, of devotees, formed the resolution of devising a method of defiling Haridas. This man, by the name of Ramachandra Khan, was very well known in those parts. He made also an immense following, and great material prosperity made him proud. Under the advice of several mean-minded friends, he prepared to engage himself in an evil deed. He, Haridas, an alien, had come to reside in the village of Ramachandra. Without offering to support the evil deeds of Ramachandra, he was always occupied with the name of Hari. Although born in a Yavana family, he uttered vocatives of the Sanskrit language in calling God. The name uttered by him, because he prayed with a loud voice, penetrated into the auricular cavities of persons like Ramachandra Khan, etc. In such hearing, in the opinion of Ramachandra Khan, being clearly against the Shastras, Ramachandra volunteered to create trouble for Haridas. End quote. In the above commentary by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he notes the malicious behavior of those persons in the quote-unquote higher castes that was commonly exhibited toward those of lower castes and births. Rather than being enlivened by the wonderful spiritual success story of Srila Haridas Thakur, Ramachandra Khan and others of his ilk reacted in an envious way, like animals defending their territory. In this case, it was not so much territory as prestige and social standing that was being defended. This was contrasted with the reaction of the more pious members of Hindu society of that locale, who were clearly delighted to see the spiritual advancement of the Thakur and considered themselves fortunate to have his association. Haridas Thakur, in the minds of the demoniac section, would be made to suffer for the misfortune of being an outsider or an alien in every sense. He was a Muslim, he was not from that part of the country, and he was engaging in a quote-unquote controversial practice, chanting the holy names of God. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami states, Quote, by no means could he find any fault in the character of Haridas Thakur. Therefore, he called for local prostitutes and began to plan to discredit his holiness, end quote. Raghava Chaitanya Prabhu comments, quote, unfortunately, Ramachandra Khan took Haridas Thakur to be a mere beginner in the devotional field, a weak-minded emotionalist who could be made an easy victim to the temptations of the world. Puffed up by the vanities of wealth, youth, and rank, he did not understand the marvelous glories of the devotees of Sri Hari. Having full faith in his newly invented plan, Ramachandra Khan secured the help of the best prostitutes of the locality and asked them to spoil the character of Thakur Haridas. He promised them huge rewards. All these prostitutes, except one, did not accept the offer and retired. But one of them, a young and the most beautiful amongst the lot, ventured to accept the offer and assured him of success by bringing ruin on the character of Thakur Haridas in 3 days' time.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, Ramachandra thought that Haridas was a weak-minded young man like himself, engaged in uttering the name of Hari merely under the impulse of the moment, who had become a sadhu, being denied the possession of objects of sensuous gratification, and therefore would be drawn away from the path of holiness by the actual contact of any object of sensuous desire, and thinking thus and gaining over a certain harlot by holding out the prospect of pecuniary reward, he sent her to the solitary cell of Thakur Haridas. Ramachandra Khan had made severe miscalculations not only about the character of Srila Haridas Thakur, but about his own importance. Although it is true that there are many pretenders in the dress of saintly persons who utilize saffron cloth as a pretext to fill their bellies and live a comfortable life of sensual indulgence, Srila Haridas Thakur bore absolutely no relation to such cheaters. Ramachandra Khan, due to the bewilderment of wealth, ignorant followers, and local prestige, also imagined himself to be a person of great intelligence and a keen judge of human character. He arrogantly fantasized that he was spiritually evolved and that Haridas Thakur's activities were not authorized by the scriptures. He reached this conclusion by consulting his own cynical mind and a number of his syophonatic followers. His previous experience had repeatedly proved to him that if you can discover a man's weakness, it is easy enough to entrap and expose him as an ordinary sensuous person, driven by the senses and mind to indulge in sense pleasure. Being such a proud materialist and driven by demoniac tendencies, Ramachandra Khan could not tolerate anyone in his locale who didn't show him suitable signs of awed recognition and fawning respect. Therefore, he desired to destroy the credibility of the ignorant followers of the Thakur by exposing him as an ordinary person. Srila Haridas Thakur, being spiritually absorbed, had not given any thoughts to creating relationships with local rulers and politicians. His sole intent was the constant ecstatic glorification of Krishna. Nonetheless, Haridas was well aware of the full scope of Khan's intentions in the very moment his unfortunate plan was put into motion. It is clear that Ramachandra Khan would conceive of nothing as tempting as an attractive young woman. Generally, people imagine that others think and feel the same way they do. Atmavan manyate jagat. Everyone thinks of others according to their own tendencies or predilections. Thus, the foolish politician imagined that his plans were infallible because the ultimate temptation in the form of a beautiful woman was being placed before a sentimental person masquerading as a sadhu. Ramachandra Khan told the prostitute, "My constable will go with you, so that as soon as he sees you with Haridas Thakur, immediately he will arrest him and bring both of you to me." But the young girl replied, "First, let me have union with him once, then the second time I shall take your constable with me to arrest him." Titled Temptation. That evening, the prostitute dressed herself very attractively and approached Haridas Thakur at sunset. After offering obeisances obeisances to the tulsi plant, she approached the doorway of the hut and offered obeisances to Haridas Thakur, and then remained standing in the doorway. Raghava Chaitanya Prabhu writes, she then slowly sat down at his steps. She exhibited her body to Haridas Thakur in various gestures and postures like one mad with sensuous passions.
She spoke to him very sweetly as follows. My dear Thakur, O great preacher, great devotee, you are so beautifully built, and your youth is just beginning. Who is the woman who could control her mind after seeing you? I am eager to be united with you. My mind is greedy for this. If I don't obtain you, I shall not be able to keep my body and soul together. Haridas Thakur replied, I shall accept you without fail, but you'll have to wait until I finish chanting my regular rounds on my beads. Until that time, please sit and listen to the chanting of the holy name. As soon as I am finished, I shall fulfill your desire. Haridas Thakur did not deceive her. In fact, it would be revealed that he chose his words carefully. The prostitute sat with Haridas until he chanted until dawn, and then she returned to Ramachandra Khan with the news of Thakur's promise. The next night she returned, and the Thakur gave her many assurances. Last night you were disappointed. Please excuse my offense. I shall certainly accept you. Please sit down and hear the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra until my regular chanting is finished. Then your desire will surely be fulfilled. After offering her obeisances to the Tulsi plant and Haridas Thakur, she sat down at the door. Hearing Haridas Thakur chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, she also chanted, O my Lord Hari, O my Lord Hari. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada comments, herein one can clearly see how a Vaishnava delivers fallen soul by transcendental trick. The prostitute came to pollute Haridas Thakur, but he took it as his duty to deliver the prostitute. As clearly demonstrated here, the process of deliverance is very simple. With faith and reverence, the prostitute associated with Haridas Thakur, who personally treated her material disease by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Although the prostitute had an ulterior motive, somehow or other she got the association of a Vaishnava and satisfied him by occasionally chanting in imitation, O my Lord Hari, O my Lord Hari. The conclusion is that by associating with a Vaishnava, chanting the holy name of the Lord and offering obeisances to the Tulsi plant or a Vaishnava, all lead one to become a transcendental devotee who is completely cleansed of all material contamination. Nevertheless, by the end of the night, the prostitute was feeling restless. Seeing this, the Thakur spoke to her as follows, I have vowed to chant 10 million names in a month. I have taken this vow, but now it is nearing its end. I thought that today I would be able to finish my performance of yajna, sacrifice, my chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. I tried my best to chant the holy name all night, but I still did not finish. Tomorrow I will certainly finish, and my vow will be fulfilled. Then it will be possible for me to enjoy with you in full freedom. The prostitute once again returned to Ramachandra Khan and tendered her report. On the following day, she came earlier than usual at the beginning of the evening. After offering her obeisances to the Tulsi plant and Haridas Thakur, she sat down on the threshold, hearing his chanting and chanting herself. Haridas Thakur assured her, today it will be possible for me to finish my chanting. Then I shall satisfy all your desires.
Conversion. The night ended, but by Haridas Thakur's association, the mind of the prostitute had changed. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments, begin quote, watching the manifestation of the supernatural force of the character of Haridas, the heart of the sinful woman was changed. Transformation, end quote. Transformation of the prostitute was profound. This is described in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that the association of a Madhyama Adhikari is sufficient to create Shraddha or faith. However, by the association with an Uttama Adhikari, symptoms of Bhava ecstasy may be experienced. Although the prostitute is described in the text and commentary above in very severe terms, sinful, fallen, etc., in the modern age, young men and women indulge in random acts of sex, gambling, intoxication, etc., as a matter of course, without the promise of reward and with very little thought of the possible consequences. Therefore, their minds and hearts are very covered and dull even when compared to the young prostitutes. Srila Prabhupada rescued many such men and women who were indulging in behavior much worse than the young woman sent by Khan, and yet Srila Prabhupada was able, by the supernatural force of his character, to give them a taste of spiritual ecstasy and set them on the path of liberation and pure devotional service. By experiencing the higher taste of Krishna consciousness, layers of ignorance are shattered and real life begins. The young girl, who had been born into a culture of respect for saintly persons, was deeply affected by the powerful atmosphere of divine love which emanated from Srila Haridasa Thakur. Now purified, she fell at the feet of Haridasa Thakur and confessed that Ramachandra Khan had sent her to tempt him for sex. The young girl, terrified at the temerity of what she had done, began to plead with Haridas that she wanted his shelter. She felt that she had committed many sins, topped off by this attempt to cause a saint to break his vows. She begged for deliverance. Srila Haridasa Thakur replied, I know everything about the conspiracy of Ramachandra Khan. He is nothing but an ignorant fool. Therefore, his activities do not make me feel unhappy. On the very day Ramachandra Khan was planning his intrigue against me, I would have left this place immediately. But because you have come to me, I stayed here for 3 days to deliver you. The prostitute said, kindly act as my spiritual master. Instruct me in my duty by which to get relief from material existence. The Thakur replied, immediately go home and distribute to the Brahmanas whatever property you have. Then come back to this room and stay here forever in Krishna consciousness. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra continuously and render service to the Tulasi plant by watering her and offering prayers to her. In this way, you will very soon get the opportunity to be sheltered at the lotus feet of Krishna. Haridasa Thakur knew by the inner direction of the Lord in the heart exactly what Ramachandra Khan had planned, but he had stayed just for the chance of rescuing the young girl who was at her heart's core innocent. The proof of her sincerity will shortly be revealed. So, here one thing to note is because she's a prostitute, she wasn't recommended to get married. There is no marriage. And in fact, here one can see that the recommendation that Haridasa Thakur gave to the prostitute it's very tough for any ordinary person to do. But she was such a great soul that she actually did it, that he asked her to give up everything that she had. She's a single woman, a beautiful young woman who only knew how to maintain her life through prostitution. So she wasn't of a high class nature, and obviously she had no protection or shelter. But Thakur Haridas asked her to take full shelter of Krishna because he's the Guru, and she follows what the Guru says. Then Krishna takes care of the rest. She doesn't ask Haridasa Thakur, what about who's going to feed me? No, she just comes and does that, and Krishna is going to take care. My Guru has told me to do it. Krishna will take care. This is faith. This is that strong faith that is created by the association with an Uttamadhikari. We see that even Srila Prabhupada sent his disciples with literally nothing to London and several other places around the world. They never asked, how are we going to feed ourselves? They didn't have a place to stay. They literally were staying on the street. And Prabhupada said, married couples like this. This is the level of faith, and you can see they were also prostitutes and debauchees before they came to Srila Prabhupada. So that is the potency of following the spiritual master's order. That one becomes very exalted and Krishna becomes very obliged. He becomes very obliged. Now that the prostitute followed what Thakur Haridas said, now Krishna became very obliged to the prostitute. He has to provide for her. He has to protect her. Because she has fully taken shelter of Krishna. This is a very, very high. In this case, this prostitute, she's done what even great male renunciants or sannyasis are unable to do. Because she can't even really go and beg food from anywhere. She's a prostitute. She's a woman. So, yeah.
Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati comments, the heart of the merciful Haridasa was touched. He forgot all about the bad profession of the harlot, the unworthy object of the lust of many, and decided that she was eligible for taking the Mahamantra of the name of Hari in the manner that is free from offense, rescued her from the deep well of sensuality. Such mercy is not met with anywhere expect in the heart of a Vaishnava. All praise to Haridas. May your mercy be appreciated by all the people of the world. In this commentary on this incident, Professor Sanyal raises the issue of whether the conversion of the prostitute was simply an exercise in blind sentimentality on her part. The concept of religious sentimentalism has its parallel in other religious traditions where, in the intense atmosphere of rival of faith, one dedicates himself with great fervor to be born again or to transform his or her life. After a few days, the idea is given up and the former life of sensual indulgence is renewed. In Sanskrit, the expression shamasana vairagya, crematorium renunciation, is used to illustrate a similar principle. One goes to the burning hut, crematorium, and reflects on the temporality of human existence. He/she decides to be dedicated to spirituality more seriously. After a few weeks, the initial enthusiasm dissipates and the inspiration is lost. The professor rejects this idea that her renunciation was sentimental, explaining, the harlot was not converted by speculative arguments addressed to the mind, but simply by listening to the name of Hari from the lips of Haridasa Thakur and chanting the same herself in his company. She had apparently the advantage of possessing at the very outset a natural regard for Thakur Haridas and for his advice and also for the holy Tulasi. This was the only antecedent condition of her redemption. Was it, therefore, blind and traditional faith that actually saved her in this crisis? The answer must be negative. Those who are most afflictiously given to the cult of blind faith are not necessarily attracted towards the actual devotee. The affinity for the true soul is itself a spiritual, that is to say, perfectly conscious impulse. It must be carefully distinguished from the blind material impulse which is so common, which as a matter of fact is the worst form of obstacle in the way of realization of spiritual life. The instinctive affinity of the harlot for Haridas is an activity of the soul and as such is therefore perfectly moral, perfectly self-cognizant, and categorically different from the sensuous sentimentality that ordinarily passes in the world as blind faith. Faith is the instinctive attitude of the soul towards the truth and can therefore never be blind. It is the blind who in their blindness compound true faith with the counterfeit with which alone they happen to be, unfortunately for themselves, only too familiar. Real faith can alone lead one to the presence of a pure soul. The mature mind cannot reach the proximity of a sadhu. The harlot possessed the spiritual faculty by which it was possible for her to really approach Haridas, Thakur Haridas. Regarding Haridas's instruction to the former prostitute to distribute all of her possessions to qualified brahmanas and take up his example of chanting and worshipping Tulasi, Srila Prabhupada comments, everything actually belongs to Krishna, but so-called civilized man unfortunately thinks that everything belongs to them. This is the mistake of material civilization. The prostitute, Vyeshya, has earned money by questionable means, and therefore Haridasa Thakur advised her to distribute to the brahmanas whatever she possessed. The order given by Haridas for young women to take up such a life of severe renunciation and self-abnegation might strike many readers as impractical and impossible to follow. However, he had bestowed such powerful mercy upon her that she was able to fully surrender to his instructions. Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita that whoever fully surrenders to him will be protected from the results of all sinful reactions and attain the platform of fearlessness due to being completely protected at every moment by Krishna. The former prostitute had complete faith in this principle, and Krishna's pure representative, Haridasa Thakur. Because I want to read the disappearance of Haridasa Thakur. Let's go to that. We'll go to chapter 8, which is all the way back here. It's not too long, I think. It's a, Let's go. Oh yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, so we read glorious revelations and departure.
Chapter 8 Glorious Revelations and Departure. Relieving Lord Chaitanya's Anxiety. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to see Haridasa Thakur at Siddha Bakula, and expressed his anxiety for the fallen souls of Kali Yuga. Quote, "My dear Thakur Haridas, in this age of Kali, most people are bereft of Vedic culture, and therefore they are called Yavanas. They are concerned only with killing cows and Brahminical culture. In this way, they all engage in sinful acts. How will these Yavanas be delivered? To my great unhappiness, I do not see any way." End quote. Srila Prabhupada explains in the above verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that the term Yavana does not refer to a particular group, but rather to those persons who are violent killers of cows and Brahminical culture. Sometimes the term Yavana is used to refer to the 15th century Turkish invaders whose conquering of India was foretold in the Vedic literature. The predicted conquest actually took place. However, Lord Chaitanya was universally concerned for all such persons who were cow killers and destroyers of Brahminical culture, since by such activities they were creating a very inauspicious future for themselves. It is also significant that such persons are the majority of the populace in Kali Yuga. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was referring, in this instance, to cultural habits, not people or places. In general, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran were all vegetarian cultures in ancient times. Broadly, these people followed Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Jainism, Vedic religion, Vaishnavism, and other religions that prohibited or discouraged meat eating. In contrast, part of Yavana culture was and is meat eating. Since the time of Alexander and even before, the meat-eating cultures of the Yavanas gradually influenced and overtook the vegetarian cultures. In response to these influences, Vaishnavas in general, and followers of Mahaprabhu in particular, strongly oppose meat eating, finding it abominable. Other cultural practices of the Yavanas may be more or less acceptable, but meat eating is not a worthy act for a human being. When Haridasa Thakur heard this question, he immediately felt inspired to pacify the Lord. This is the nature of a confidential devotee of the Lord. He wants to relieve him of his anxiety for the suffering of the conditioned souls. This is the true nature of confidentiality. Understanding the Lord's compassionate desire to help those souls who are caught in the meshes of the illusory energy and acting to relieve the anxiety of the Lord. Sometimes persons with a superficial theistic understanding imagine that confidential devotees are those who have so-called high realizations and spend their time delivering lengthy expositions on arcane and esoteric scriptural topics. Such persons and their followers often mistake jnana, book or theoretical knowledge, for vijnana, spiritual realization, and therefore neglect making serious efforts to bring Krishna consciousness to those souls lost in the material world. In their hierarchy of concern, understanding quote-unquote high topics, personal spiritual enjoyment and advancement come first, and relieving the Lord's anxiety to deliver conditioned souls follows as a distant second, not understanding that their greed for realization can be best accomplished by putting the relief of the Lord's anxiety in the first position. The Lord is extremely anxious to bring bewildered souls back to the spiritual world, where they may achieve the happiness which they have sought for many lifetimes in the material world, where there are so many anxieties and miseries. Those devotees who dedicate themselves to relieving the anxiety of the Lord by practical service to the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are truly confidential associates of the Lord. Haridasa Thakur began to explain how such yavanas can be delivered by namabhas. Namabhas is an amazingly merciful arrangement of the Lord, allowing a person to benefit from chanting the holy name inadvertently, even though intending something else. Such chanting still receives the credit derived from offenseless chanting. Haridasa Thakur gave the example of Muslims who use the expression haram to indicate something abominable. Nevertheless, by chanting they receive the benefit of namabhas, which can deliver a conditioned soul. When a Vaishnava chants the same expression, haram, he is vibrating the name of Lord Rama. Therefore, or however, despite the intention, the vibration's effect and transcendental power is not destroyed.
There are so many words in various languages containing the holy name. For example, in English, we have many words which are commonly vibrated which contain the embedded syllable om, like home, comb, dome, gnome, tome, etc. There are cities which contain names of God like Rome, Nome, Tallahassee, Allah, motels like Ramada Inn, Rama, etc. Haridas Thakur points out that the Lord is so merciful that he even credits such unconscious chanting of the holy name as Namabhasa. Even if the syllables of the holy name are pronounced incorrectly, they will still act. However, the inconceivable power or mystery of the holy name does not permit us to abuse that power. When we have come in contact with a devotee, or he or she instruct us to have respect for the name and to pronounce it in the proper attitude. Similarly, other religious traditions also prescribe devotional attitudes when chanting the Lord's name. Haridas Thakur also gives the example of giving the Lord's name to children so that throughout the day we are vibrating the holy name, citing the incidents of Ajamil, who was delivered by sincerely chanting the name of his son, Narayana, despite Ajamil's many previous sinful activities. Haridas Thakur states, even a faint light from the holy name of the Lord can eradicate the reactions of sinful life, because of even the faintest rays of the effulgence of the Lord's holy name one can attain liberation. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, he was very pleased but inquired further about the moving and non-moving living beings like trees, plants, insects, and other living entities. How would they be delivered? Haridas Thakur immediately replied that by the Lord's own chanting, such deliverance had already been accomplished by his chanting in the Jharikanda forest, and by the benediction given to Vasudeva Datta by the Lord to deliver all the living beings in the universe. The delivery of all living beings had been achieved simply by the desire of Vasudeva Datta, a great devotee whose compassion and affection for all living beings had reached a level inconceivable to most human beings. Although secretly amazed and very pleased by Haridas Thakur's analysis, the Lord raised a doubt. If all living entities were liberated, the entire universe would be devoid of living beings. Haridas Thakur immediately explained that when the Lord delivered all moving and non-moving beings in different species, he then awakened the living beings who were not yet embodied and thus repopulated the universe. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that a prison never remains empty. There are always criminals to refill it. The Thakur explained how in Lord Rama's and Lord Krishna's appearances, they similarly freed all the living entities. He then spoke with great awe and appreciation of the Lord's kindness, quoting Vishnu Purana 4.15.17. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead may be seen, glorified, or remembered with an attitude of envy, he nevertheless awards the most confidential liberation, which is really achieved by the demigods and demons.
What can be said of those who are already fully engaged in devotional service to the Lord? Haridas Thakur continued, by descending as an incarnation in Navadvip, you, just like Krishna, have already delivered all the living entities of the universe. One may say that he understands the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He may know whatever he may know, but as far as I am concerned, this is my conclusion. My dear Lord, your pastimes are just like an ocean of nectar. It is not possible for me to conceive how great that ocean is, or even to understand a drop of it. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard all these conclusive and profound remarks, he was astonished. He began to silently consider, these are actually my confidential pastimes. How could Haridas have understood them? To summarize, if one were to look at the conversation between Haridas Thakur and Mahaprabhu at the discussion about how to deliver people from the Yavana influence, a few items are prominent. First, Mahaprabhu presented the problem of the Yavana culture. Then Haridas elevated the conversation to the spiritual level by citing the power of chanting the Lord's name. Mahaprabhu countered by asking about other living entities aside from humans. Such a question follows perfectly because Haridas had put the discussion on the spiritual level where there are no bodily distinctions. Again, Haridas gives a wonderful answer, explaining that deliverance is ultimately the pleasure of the Lord. In reverse order, the pleasure of the Lord is the highest goal of the living being. The chanting of his name is the most important way to make the connection with the Lord and offer him some service, some pleasure. Finally, in a cultural setting, individuals and societies that avoid meat eating and elevate the devotees of the Lord provide the basis for spiritual advancement, or the path toward giving pleasure to the Lord. In this way, the Lord and his devotee, Haridasa Thakur, have stressed the Lord's pleasure, or his service, and his name as the greatest strategy for deliverance and for counteracting the Yavana influence. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Haridasa Thakur and avoided further discussion on this topic. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu attempts to cover his opulences, he cannot do so before his devotees. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to his personal devotees and began speaking about Haridasa Thakur's transcendental qualities as he had hundreds of mouths. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu derives great pleasure from glorifying his devotees, and among the devotees, Haridasa Thakur is the foremost. The transcendental qualities of Haridasa Thakur are innumerable and unfathomable. One may describe a portion of them, but to count them all is impossible. In the Chaitanya Mangal, or the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has described the attributes of Haridasa Thakur to some extent. No one can describe all the qualities of Haridasa Thakur. One may say something about them just to purify himself. In this way, Haridasa Thakur passes his time in Jagannath Puri in the secluded garden of Siddha Bakula, associating on a daily basis with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting 3 lakhs of rounds every day without fail, being personally brought prasadam by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's exalted godbrother Govinda, the personal servant of both Ishvara Puri and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, giving encouragement and inspiration to all the devotees who came to him, and personifying the principle of Vaishnava humility and determination to always be absorbed in the chanting of the holy name, day and night. Whenever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes of Nam Sankirtan at Jagannath Puri, Haridas was one of the principal dancers and singers. He was a very beautiful personality and an incomparable topmost devotee of the Lord. All his desires to associate with the Lord and to assist the Lord in expressing the paramount importance of chanting the holy name were fulfilled. He grew old. He had appeared some 35 years prior to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it became increasingly difficult for him to continue his rigid vows.
What's the passing of Haridasa Thakur? What's the next subject?
The passing of Haridasa Thakur. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami summarizes the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Puri. One day, Govinda went to deliver the remnants of Lord Jagannath to Haridasa Thakur in great jubilation. But when he arrived, he saw the exalted devotee lying on his back and chanting his rounds very slowly. He requested Haridas to rise and take the Mahaprasadam, but Haridas insisted that he would fast as he had not finished his rounds. However, since it was Mahaprasad, he offered prayers and honored a tiny portion. The situation was immediately reported to the Lord by Govinda. The next day, Lord Chaitanya came to see Haridas and asked him if he was well. Haridas replied, "My body is all right, but my mind and intelligence are not well." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him if he could ascertain the disease, and Thakur replied, "My disease is that I cannot complete my rounds." Srila Prabhupada points out that although the activities of Haridasa Thakur cannot be imitated, 16 rounds minimum must be chanted by initiated disciples, loudly enough that both the chanter and others hearing the chanting can hear. He further comments, if one cannot complete the fixed number of rounds he is assigned, he should be considered to be diseased. He should be considered to be in a diseased condition of spiritual life. So note that Prabhupada wanted japa to be chanted loud enough so that both the chanter and others can hear. Others hearing the chanting can hear, not like that. So, Lord Chaitanya then reassured Haridasa Thakur that it was no longer necessary for him to keep such a rigid chanting vow. Your role in this incarnation is to deliver the people in general. You have sufficiently preached the glories of the holy name in this world. Lord Chaitanya uses the words Tomar Avatar, your incarnation, to describe Haridas. Whenever the Lord descends, so many great devotees also descend to assist him in his pastimes. The Lord repeatedly assured Haridas that he could reduce the fixed number of rounds he had been chanting. Regarding Srila Prabhupada's comments about being in a diseased condition of spiritual life, the only medicine which is powerful enough to effect a complete and perfect cure is Nama Aushadhi. Eneche Aushadhi Maya Nasi Baro Lagi, Harinama Mahamantra Lao Tumi Magi. According to our Acharya, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, the seventh Goswami, Lord Gauranga himself preaches to all the living beings. I brought the medicine for destroying the illusion of Maya. Now pray for this Harinam Mahamantra and take it. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur also sings, whether you are a householder or a sannyasi, constantly chant Hari Hari. Do not forget this chanting, whether you are in a happy condition or in a distressful one. Just fill your lips with the Harinam. And he conclusively states, there is nothing except the holy name, the Lord himself within the 14 worlds. Haridasa Thakur then replied, kindly hear my real plea. He proceeded to make many excruciatingly humble remarks about himself and then stated, you have made me dance in many ways. For example, I was offered the Shraddha Patra, that should have been offered to the first class Brahmanas. I ate from it, even though I was born in a family of meat eaters. I have had one desire for a very long time. I think quite soon, my Lord, you will bring to close your pastimes within this material world. I wish that you not show me this closing chapter of your pastimes. Before that time comes, kindly let my body fall down in your presence. I wish to catch your lotus-like feet upon my heart and see your moon-like face. With my tongue I shall chant your holy name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. That is my desire. Kindly let me give up my body in this way. O most merciful Lord, if by your mercy it is possible, kindly grant my desire. Let this low-born body fall down before you. You can make possible this perfection of all my desires. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately expressed his dismay that Thakur Haridas wanted to depart from the world and simultaneously affirmed his capacity and right to do whatever he wished. Lord Chaitanya indicated that Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, was obligated out of love to do as Haridas Thakur desired, and yet he simultaneously appealed to him to stay on. My dear Haridas, Krishna is so merciful that he must execute what you want. But whatever happiness is mine is all due to your association. It is not fitting for you to go away and leave my side. Haridas Thakur did not want Lord Chaitanya to avoid his request by reference to his loving attachment to his servant. The Thakur immediately caught hold of the feet of the Lord and pleaded with him.
My Lord, do not create an illusion. Although I am fallen, you must certainly show me this mercy. My Lord, there are so many respectable personalities, millions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. They are all helpful in your pastime. My Lord, if an insignificant insect like me dies, what is the loss? If an ant dies, where is the loss to the material world? My Lord, you are always affectionate to your devotees. I am just an imitation devotee, but nevertheless I wish that you fulfill my desire. That is my expectation. This instance of Haridas Thakur, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fulfills his desire, appears to be confusing. A pure devotee has no desire other than to please the Lord. Yet Lord Chaitanya is requesting Haridas Thakur to stay, and Haridas Thakur is insisting that he be allowed to go. Several questions arise. First, why would Haridas Thakur wish to separate himself from the company of the Lord? Second, why would a great Vaishnava insist on the fulfillment of his own desire in presence to the desire of the Lord? There are several ways to view this apparent contradiction. On one hand, there was no question of Haridas Thakur being separated from the Lord under any circumstance, as he was an eternal servant of the Lord and could never be without the company of the Lord at any time. Haridas Thakur understood the desires of the Lord perfectly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Haridas Thakur, the perfect Acharya, to show the world how to die gloriously chanting. At the same time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also exhibited the affection that the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Haridas, I lost the spot here. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Haridas Thakur, the perfect Acharya, to show the world how to die gloriously chanting. At the same time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also exhibits the affection that the Lord feels for his pure devotee by asking him not to leave. Haridas Thakur had never exhibited any separate desire in all of his dealings with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This incident was no exception. The glorious passing of Haridas exhibits perfection in the art of dying. Just as Haridas Thakur had understood the most confidential aspects of Sri Chaitanya's mission in his discussion about the deliverance of all jivas by the holy name, he now exhibits his perfect understanding of the Lord's desire for the final chapter of his appearance in the material world. From another angle of vision, to be a pure devotee of the Lord does not mean to become a sycophantic automation who simply channels Krishna and completely suppresses his own personality and desire. When there is love between the Lord and his devotee, the Lord also loves the devotee's unique qualities and personality and even their contrary nature. Where there is love, there can be a disagreement. There can even be disagreement, a difference of opinion. For Haridas Thakur, it was too painful for him to even contemplate the Lord's disappearance. He is expressing his individuality, knowing full well that such an exhibition of his unique personality would ultimately be pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not give an immediate answer to his servant's request. He agreed to meet Haridas on the following day and give him his decision. He embraced Haridas and left to perform his noon duties and took his bath in the ocean. On the next morning, after seeing Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accompanied by all of his devotees, came to visit Haridas Thakur. Haridas offered obeisances to the Lord and all the assembled Vaishnavas. The Lord asked, "My dear Haridas, what is the news?" The Lord question could have been taken in the conventional sense. For example, we commonly say, "What's going on? What's happening? What's the latest?" Such questions generally refer to the everyday events in personal life or various material developments. However, Haridas Thakur answer brushed aside such possible interpretations. Firmly fixed in his position as the Lord's eternal servant, he replied with a complete understanding of his position. Reading 2 pages.
Where are you? My Lord, whatever mercy you can bestow upon me. This reply by Thakur Haridas exhibited his perfect understanding of the existential position of a pure living being. As a servant of the Lord, the only news is whatever mercy the Lord bestows in his dealings with his sold-out servant. A servant has no independence. He depends only on the Lord in all circumstances. News is the revelation of the Lord's mercy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began congregational chanting with all of his followers. Great devotees like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy were present, chanting ecstatically. Lord Chaitanya began glorifying Haridas Thakur, enumerating his divine attributes as though he possessed 5 mouths. As he described Haridas Thakur's qualities and glories, he became increasingly happy. Upon hearing the glories of the exalted Haridas, all of the Vaishnavas were stunned and wonderstruck. They all immediately fell down and offered obeisances to the Thakur. Haridas Thakur forced the Lord to sit down in front of him and took the Lord's feet and placed them on his heart. He took the dust of the feet of all the assembled Vaishnavas on his head and then fixed his eyes like 2 bumblebees on the Lord's beautiful face. He began to chant the Lord's name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, again and again as tears glided down from his eyes. Chapter 8, Glorious... Oh, okay, sorry. While chanting in this way, he gave up his body and left for the spiritual world. All who witnessed his passing were reminded of the passage of Bhishma Dev. When grandfather Bhishma was ready to depart this world, Krishna appeared before him because Bhishma Dev was the unflinching servant of Krishna. Haridas was also an unflinching servitor, the Namacharya, and therefore Lord Chaitanya was obligated, out of love, to come before his servitor at the last moments of his earthly existence.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. I got this Siddhabakku tree wood here from a devotee who couldn't take it with him because of issues with the immigration in 2019. So this is the tree that Haridas Thakur would actually chant under, as mentioned in the book. So devotees can take darshan of this place it up on their heads and
This
pray.
tree had darshan of Haridasa Thakur.
Yeah, it recently, I think, left its body, so then devotees,
Yeah, Indradhyumna Maharaj.
Indradhyumna Maharaj had some of it, and somehow this devotee got some, so I had the fortune of being able to steal it.
Thakur Haridas ki
Jai.
jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Pavan, he couldn't take it with him, so
This
he,
is like the tree.
yeah.
Wow.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur too. He built his house close by, one of his houses close by tonight. I was
Oh.
hearing about that today. And then I think he would. I mean, obviously, I'm sure he chanted by it too.
Yeah, and that's ecstatic.
Yeah.
So many other devotees would have chanted by it.
Yeah.
The trees. Here.